the president once again made time to mention his favorite moron, me.
He's doing really well. Totally dominates the late night. Totally dominates. So I guess there's morons that they have at the end. Kimmel, what bad people?
Thank you. You know, Donald, you mentioned me. Over the last 4 days, you mentioned me 3 times now in 4 days. I just want you to know, I'm thinking about you too, girl.
Hello to everyone tuning in tonight, especially the regular late-night crowd that just finished laughing along with the usual jokes about Donald Trump. The kind of laughter that sticks with you right up until bedtime. But let's be honest, we're not here just for the punchlines. We're here for what sets in after the laughter fades. That quiet moment when someone tells you everything is fine, and your instinct is to check your bank balance, your grocery receipt, or your latest medical bill. Because comedy aside, tonight's story centers on a political figure having a truly rough moment, one marked by silence, avoidance, and unanswered questions. Cameras are being dodged, questions are going unanswered, and several serious issues, from transparency disputes to confusing public statements, are hanging in the air all at once. Let's begin with the moment that seems to sum it all up. In recent days, Donald Trump has largely avoided press interaction. After a rambling speech in North Carolina, delivered to a crowd smaller and quieter than expected, he returned to Florida without taking questions. Since then, he's remained largely out of view, spending time at his resort while reporters continue to seek answers. Questions about document disclosures and transparency laws were met not with explanations, but with silence. Reporters attempted to get comments, only to be ignored as Trump moved quickly past them, giving the impression of someone eager to avoid engagement rather than confront controversy. At the center of this is a federal transparency requirement tied to records connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Under the law, the Justice Department was required to release all related materials in its possession by a set deadline, with only limited redactions allowed, specifically to protect victims' identities. The intent was clear. Sensitive personal information could be withheld, but records could not be concealed simply to protect powerful individuals from embarrassment or scrutiny. However, according to reporting, only a small portion of the records were released, and much of that material was heavily redacted. The result felt less like transparency and more like a symbolic gesture, leaving many questioning whether the law was followed in spirit, not just on paper. What made matters more unsettling was the discovery of an image buried within the released files. Online researchers noticed what appeared to be a photograph taken inside Epstein's residence, which included a framed image showing Donald Trump alongside young women, and possibly another image featuring Trump with Melania. The photo wasn't highlighted or announced. It was simply there. Once people began pointing it out online, the file was quietly removed from the public database. The sequence of file numbers suddenly skipped over it, as if it had never existed. That kind of disappearance raised serious questions about how the release was being managed and whether inconvenient material was being selectively removed. Official explanations focused on protecting privacy, but critics noted a troubling pattern. The redactions appeared less concerned with shielding victims and more focused on insulating influential figures from reputational harm. This stood in direct contrast to the language of the law, which explicitly stated that records could not be withheld simply to avoid political fallout or public embarrassment. Yet the approach taken suggested exactly that, an effort to protect elite reputations rather than provide full accountability. The handling of unrelated public figures only added to the confusion. Old, widely available photos featuring Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, and her children were reportedly included in the document set and treated as though they were relevant to the Epstein investigation. Faces of children were blurred as if their identities were unknown, even though they were clearly identifiable public figures. One of Diana Ross's children even clarified publicly that the image was from a normal public event. Instead of a clear, carefully curated release of relevant evidence, the public received a mix of mislabeled material, missing files, and questionable editorial choices. Meanwhile, Trump himself appeared focused elsewhere. Rather than addressing concerns directly, his campaign circulated dramatic fundraising emails featuring exaggerated imagery and emotional language, suggesting heroic efforts to reach supporters under impossible conditions. The message always led to the same conclusion: a request for donations. While avoiding tough questions from reporters, the outreach for financial support continued without pause, creating a stark contrast between public silence and private solicitation. Even some of Trump's usual political allies began voicing confusion. Marjorie Taylor Greene publicly quoted the transparency law itself, asking why its requirements weren't being followed more fully. Her comments reflected growing frustration among supporters who had believed the promise was to expose corruption, not obscure it. When figures known for unwavering loyalty begin raising statutory questions, it signals deeper unrest within the base. Others, including former Republicans, suggested a more troubling interpretation. They argued that the political cost Trump appeared willing to absorb, contradicting his own messaging and risking backlash, implied that the unreleased material might be far more damaging than previously assumed. Not merely uncomfortable, but potentially serious enough to justify the fallout from noncompliance. And the Epstein files are not the only area raising transparency concerns. Critics have also pointed to allegations that certain military footage, potentially depicting troubling conduct, has not been fully released. Edited clips have been made public, but calls for uncut footage remain unanswered. At the same time, Trump has continued to speak publicly about his health, boasting about cognitive tests and medical procedures using terminology that doctors say doesn't align with standard medical practice. His descriptions often veer into confusion, leaving viewers unsure whether to laugh, worry, or both. While these issues circulate online and in independent reporting, some media outlets focus heavily on isolated or sensational stories, small-scale fraud cases, or viral clips, while avoiding broader structural questions. Housing affordability, rising costs, corporate ownership of residential property, and systemic economic pressures receive far less sustained attention. Instead, blame is often redirected toward marginalized groups, turning complex problems into simplified narratives. At times, the distraction becomes almost surreal. Viral clips of animals in subway stations or minor scandals dominate coverage, while major questions about transparency, governance, and accountability fade into the background. Even statements from Trump himself, such as joking hypotheticals about awarding himself large sums of money, are often treated as entertainment rather than examined for what they imply about leadership and responsibility. Eventually, the question stops being whether this is normal and becomes why it's been normalized. A political environment where document releases are incomplete, files disappear, serious allegations go unanswered, and fundraising continues uninterrupted should concern anyone paying attention. The contrast between what is emphasized and what is ignored tells its own story. If you've stayed with this analysis, you've already done something important. You've paid attention. You've looked beyond the surface-level distractions and noticed patterns. The same institutions accused of hiding information in one area appear to be limiting transparency in others. Accountability seems selective, and consequences uneven. So here's the takeaway. Don't disengage. Keep asking why required documents weren't fully released. Ask why files vanished. Ask why reputations appear to receive more protection than truth. Ask why health claims sound increasingly incoherent. And if you want to support meaningful discussion, back voices willing to question power rather than distract from it. Subscribe, engage, and speak up, because history shows that when effort is spent hiding information, it's rarely because that information is harmless.